to see everyone here. So today we are going to talk about our product called OpenShift Dev Spaces and how it makes the developers' life easy. My name is Mohit Vardhani, and I'm currently working as a Principal Technical Account Manager in Red Hat. I support customers and partners with their modernization journey in adopting the enterprise Kubernetes platform, which is OpenShift.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Ashish Sharma. I'm working as a Senior Partner Technical Account Manager with Red Hat. I'm currently working with OpenShift platform with various customer and partner in my journey.
Okay, I hope the session will be interesting for you and you will get some meaningful insights from this. This is the brief agenda that we are going to talk about. Introducing what OpenShift Dev Spaces is, what are some of the core components and architecture, what is the role of dev file, and how do we modernize or streamline the developer onboarding workflow using OpenShift Dev Spaces. And at the end, we also have a small demo to showcase how this actually works. Okay, so this image basically shows the end-to-end developer workflow. This is a very common concept, and in other way, I would say this is what the developers do day in, day out. To summarize briefly, there are two key concepts in the developer end-to-end workflow. One is the inner loop and another is the outer loop. The inner loop is where the development happens. The developer writes code, build, debug, and push the code into the repository, any source code repository. And that's where the outer loop kicks in, wherein it goes through different CI/CD processes or goes through stages like QA, security, and other things. And finally, the code gets deployed into one of the environment. Now, from the dev spaces angle, dev spaces comes into the picture during the inner loop process. It basically helps the developers to deploy a consistent, secure, containerized development environment while ensuring security and scalability in a cloud-native development. So, different developers have different perspective. They might want to choose their own development environment for different reasons, right? But at the crux, what they need is just the development environment. They don't care where the development environment is running or how it is running. What they care about is how quickly to start up their development environment so that they can code. They just have a task in hand. They just want to code on that and just be done with it, right? So that's where OpenShift Dev Spaces comes into the picture. It provides a cloud development environment that removes the need of local configuration, setup, and maintenance. It simplifies the development experience by allowing the developers to only concentrate on writing the high quality code. Now, before we move forward, let's also discuss some of the challenges that we see with local development environment as we speak to multiple customers and partners. Local development environments, which are commonly used by developers, often comes with a variety of challenges, that can hinder the developer productivity and collaboration. Some of the main challenges include, the first is the developer onboarding. Whenever a new developer joins the team or an organization, developers often need to set up a couple of tools, languages, binaries, databases to build their development environment, right? Now it can take days and sometimes weeks to set up their development environment so that they can start contributing in the development process. This can be time consuming and that can hinder the productivity. The second comes is the inconsistent environment. Now, there's a very common issue which every developer faces is it works on my machine. So whenever they try to write something, build something, it works. But then when it actually goes into the development environment or actual environment, it fails. So we have to actually bridge the gap as much as possible between the development environment as well as the actual environment. The next comes is the collaboration. Collaboration can be difficult if the developers are working on a different local development environments. Let's suppose they are trying to reproduce an issue, but both of them are having different libraries in place, right? So that's another problem. Security, laptops are difficult to secure and easy to lose. On top of that, there are certain typical applications which might not be okay to hold their code on the local desktops or laptops, right? Now let's see what OpenShift Dev Spaces is actually. So it is built on top of open source Eclipse Che project. It basically provides, it uses the Kubernetes and containers to provide developers and IT team members a secure, consistent, and zero configuration development environment. It is as fast and as familiar as an IDE on your laptop. So the experience would be similar to setting up an IDE on your laptop. You just need a laptop and a browser, and you can start contributing to code. Now, OpenShift Dev Spaces is supported only on OpenShift container platform. So if you already have OpenShift in your environment, if you have the subscription, so Dev Spaces comes free of cost. You don't need to purchase this as a separate product. It is provided as an operator in the operator hub. Those of you who are not aware about operator or operator hub, it's just a way of packaging or deploying your applications. Now you see that with deploying the dev spaces on OpenShift, you get these many advantages. The OpenShift integration is coming out of the box. You can use your favorite IDE. We have a next slide that talks about what are some of the supported IDEs with OpenShift dev spaces. Then we also support the dev file open format. It is a way of packaging your development environment in a containerized way. Then you can inject developer configuration. Git services integration is there. And then we have a pair programming. So multiple developers can collaborate on a live workspace, which is basically a development environment. So a developer can invite another colleague to collaborate on a live environment. So that's what the pair programming is. And we also provide air gap support, specifically for applications which cannot be run over the internet. You can have your own on-prem restricted setup on which you can run your OpenShift dev spaces. Now let's talk about some of the key features and benefits. So with OpenShift Dev Spaces, what you can achieve is you can create a pre-configured development environment in the form of a dev file. And whenever a new developer joins the team, all he needs is a laptop and a browser and an access to Dev Spaces dashboard, and he can replicate that development environment within minutes. So assuming that he's joining on a day one, getting a dev file, getting a laptop and starting his development environment, which his colleagues are using with the same binaries, same plugins, same setup. And he can start from very first day as well. So that's what the faster onboarding or improved developer experience is all about. Then we have collaboration. As I said, using pair programming and code together plugins, you can invite multiple developers to code in the same developer environment. We have full development lifecycle support. So you can basically integrate the dev spaces with tools like CI/CD. So from the dev spaces dashboard itself, you can also ensure that not only you build something, but you can also try it out or deploy it on one of the environment using those CI/CD plugins. Isolation and security. So at the back end, these are just the containers. These development environments are just the containers running inside the OpenShift container platform. So the security piece is coming directly from RHEL and OpenShift. So security is guaranteed over here. Then we have universal developer image. So just to empower the workspaces, Dev Spaces also ships a universal developer image. That's the container image under which your Dev Spaces environment is running. We are providing a default UDI images which contains multiple languages support, platform support, or package managers and libraries and so on. If you want, you can modify those universal developer images, add your own libraries, put it in a dev file and share it with the developers so that they can start contributing from day one. Ashish.
Thanks, Mohit. So till now we have discussed about what is Dev Space, where it stands in software development lifecycle, what are the core components here. Now let's understand the architecture of Dev Space. So there are three main components of Dev Space architecture. The first is Dev Space server. This manages our user project as well as the workspace. The star component here is our user dashboard, where we can do all kinds of customization, which we will check shortly. Then we have Dev Space operator, Dev Workspace operator. This manages and creates all the OpenShift resources like pods, services, and persistent volume. Then we have user workspace. This is our development environment. We have a dedicated slide for that. We will discuss more in details what features it's provided, how this helps us in our development. Apart from that, we have some supporting component as well. First is dev file registry. This stores all our dev files. We have multiple dev files, depends on language and frameworks that use creating our development environment in an automated way. Then we have a plugin registry. It extends our functionality. Whenever we require an edit plugin, we can add it here. We can use multiple components as well. Then we have Postgres. This is a database which holds the configuration data and the metadata of workspace. Then we have a dev space. This is our server component. This is formerly known as code ready. Then we have Che gateway. This is a traffic-based gateway which interacts with server component as well as the Kubernetes API. This is also manage and work on authentication and authorization layer. At last, we have dev space dashboard. We can think of this dashboard as a front end of our dev space, where we can do all our customization, we can choose our dev files there, we can choose our IDE there, we can also check like which particular component which require on a particular development need. So we understand that workspace is our development environment. Now let's understand details like how this workspace is created and make our life easier in our journey to develop any application project. So when we think about workspace is a containerized instance of development environment. It provides all the functionality, tools to enhance our productivity, and not only that, we can customize it as our tailored need. So as you can see in this pic, we can integrate with our web IDE, we can use code editor, plugins like Maven, Gradle. We can use binary to run our message brokers. We can also use CLI tools to integrate with OpenShift and the Kubernetes. Not only that, I mean, there are sometimes we have a specialized requirement for various plugins. We can customize that as well. We can use our UI dashboard as we discussed, or we can use the dev file. So, I mean, our goal is to find out an environment to create that made a very simplified way or development environment, but it will be very powerful and secure at the same time. Now, we have been hearing in this discussion that dev file many times. Now let's discuss a dev file. By the definition, we can think of this as a standardized way to define your development environment. You can think of it's a blueprint which is created by you to suffice your needs. Okay? So what are the benefits for that? Since it is a file that is being created using a YAML, we can reference this environment as code. So whatever we can version it. For example, we working on multiple modules. Those modules are derived in multiple versions. So we can also do versioning for our environment as well. It is referenceable since there is another team member who wants to use our development environment. We can reference our dev file which we created and we can share it with. Also, it is extensible and customization. We have lot of ways to do a customization. We have lot of plugins we can add it. But whatever we need, we can put it in our YAML file. And as soon as we code our application, we can also code our development environment. So the major properties which we have, we can integrate our SCM, any popular repository here. We can use any toolbox container here, whatever tools requires to run our application. Then we can also integrate the binaries for message brokers for those. So now let's take an example of dev file and understand that how these dev files work with us. So as we know, we can implicitly define our repository here at first. Then we have the list of components, the components which is being required. For example, we can add editor here, we can define a default browser here. As Mohit was mentioning that we use a UDI image here. So in this example, we have two components here. First is our UDI image, that is our workspace container image. Then we are also taking a Postgres SQL image, that is a helping container to run our application. So these components we can plug in together in the dev file itself. Then we have environment variables. that can be added to run our container operations. Endpoint definition. In the endpoint definition, we can define how we want to access our application and after doing our coding and stuff, and how we can run it, how we can deploy it, or whatever environment we want to do. Then we have if any application requires a dependency image, any middleware image, or any other database image, we can mention it here. But we need to make sure that the consistency of that image across the environment. Predefined commands, we can mention the predefined command here to save our time. I mean, we have done our coding, now we just need to run our application or test our application in any of the environment. Then we can just simply put the details of the command to run, the build, and deploy for there. The last is, we have some extensions provided by different IDEs, which checks our YAML config, any identification error, and the code completion as well. So this is how we can leverage the functionality of dev file in an automated way that can be referenceable, that can be reproducible. So we can do a versioning as well that can share among the multiple development team which we have. So, I mean, we have discussing about dev file architecture, dev file, how this leverages the various functionality. Question comes in there, is this running in the production or not? Yeah, so we have multiple customer in different region who is using this particular tool for their application development in their production. We have customer in APAC, EMEA, and every region with different industry stacks. Some of the critical industry, we can take the example like telco and the finances. We have also listed some of the supported stack here. We support all major ID here. By default, we use the VS Code, but for application demands, we can integrate with another IDs which is required. Languages, we can take the any language framework here which is supported by the underlying IDE. So all the famous and popular repository we can integrate with the dev space. When it comes to platform, on which platform it gets supported. So as we speak right now, the OCP 4.14 is a minimum supported version. So OCP 4.14 and higher, we can get support for this dev space. So idea is to get a development environment that can leverage or OpenShift and the cloud native features, their security, their resources, their controller, and get a robust and scalable environment. Just like as Mohit was explaining, developer doesn't need to think which version I have to work, which particular plugin I have to work. Whatever I require, we can create a dev file for that. If we can create a dev file from scratch that suffices our requirement, or we can get a referenceable dev file from our colleagues for that. So as soon as a developer get onboarded, he just need to think of application logic. He doesn't need to worry about what I configure the environment, if there is security risk there, what image, if I have to design an image. So this is a robust environment which we have. So right now I will hand over to Mohit for developer onboarding workflow.
Okay, so now from the developer's perspective, whether developer needs to know all of this? No, right? Because what he cares is the development environment. So from the workflow standpoint, since this is deployed on top of OpenShift, the very first thing is the identity provider. How do you log in? So we provide a separate dashboard for a developer dev spaces. So he just needs to log in into that dashboard using the identity provider configured in OpenShift. We support almost all the identity providers, a lot of identity providers to be integrated with OpenShift. So you can use any one of those to log in into the dashboard. That's the only part the developer cares. Once he logs in into the dashboard, he'll get the options to create his workspaces. So there are two options primarily given. One is that the workspaces can be created through a Git repo, or another is we have also provided a lot of samples. If you even don't have a code space or a dev file with you, you can use or try it out with our samples. That will also show you a dev file, also show you the functionality, try it out, and then create your own dev file as needed be. So that's what the developer is care about. But what happens in the backend? Sometimes you might be, it is interesting to know what is happening at the backend. So as soon as the developer comes in, logs into the dashboard, tries to open the IDE, In the OpenShift, a namespace gets created and a couple of containers inside the pod gets deployed, which provides the functionality of your workspace, right? So at the back end, all of the things would be taken care automatically. Developer doesn't need to care about anything. Even if it is required, he doesn't need to log into the dashboard. He can just call an API, which will, call his dev file, and the workspace would be created. So even without login specifically, or even without getting into the dashboard, he can directly call out his workspace without need to know anything what's happening in the backend. So now it's a demo time. Let's see whether what all we have said it is actually works or not. So let's take a look into a small demo. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. So for demo purpose, we are leveraging our sandbox. So sandbox is the environment that we provide for testing purpose. This you can create your account and try dev spaces from sandbox. It will pre-configure. It will come with a pre-configured OpenShift dev spaces. The experience would be similar to how when you install dev spaces on top of OpenShift. So, so here you can go and try it out free of cost. You just need to create your ID, and your ID would be valid for a couple of days. So this is how I even given the link over there. This is how the dashboard would look like when the developer logs into the dashboard. So couple of options there. We have some customizations given as well. You can choose your own editor, or you can choose the default editor, VS Code or IntelliJ, or you can also define your own editor image and the container image for that. The second is here you can define your Git repo from which you want to create your workspace. If it has a dev file, it is fine. Even if it is not, it can create a default dev file. And then these are the samples I was talking about. So even if you don't have a code base, you just want to try out things, see how things works in dev spaces. So these are the code bases for which the dev file is already there. You just need to click on any of the samples and it will create a workspace for you. So for the testing, I just clicked on PHP. When you click on this, it will start creating the workspace. It hardly takes a minute, and at times it depends upon the dependencies and the internet speed. So it goes to the progress section. It also shows you the logs and the events with the different container, what is happening in the backend or in the event section. You can see what is happening. And now if you can go back to the main dashboard, you can click on the workspaces, and it will show you how many workspaces you are running and things like that. You can go to a specific workspace, and here also you can see the events logs. The important thing is the dev files, right? So this dev file is what the dev space is this workspace is created from. So this is the sample one that we store. And here there is a one component only. That's a tool container which is using the UDI image. So this is the workspace, your own Microsoft Visual Studio IDE. So as you can see, it hardly take a minute time to create your workspace. And now you can start your coding. There's a terminal also which will give you the access to containers where you can debug or run your code. And one more benefit, or one more thing that comes from the dev file is as much task that you can write on the dev file, it be a developer an option to directly run the task from here. So you can, even if you don't know how to build the application, how to test it, how to run it, you can create a task while creating the dev file and give it to the developer. You should be able to do all those tasks without even know how those needs to be done. Now, I'll also show you what happens in the backend. So I'll take you to the OpenShift, and in the backend, although the developer doesn't need to know, but you can see over here, a workspace namespace gets created automatically, and it then deploys a pod, which is nothing but a couple of containers serving your workspace requirements. So this is what it shows: the containers, the tools containers, and the others. And yeah, so this is it. Now I'll basically delete this because in demo environment I can only create one workspace at a time, but on the actual environment you can create as many workspaces as needed. So I'll also show you one more example of how we can create the workspace using Git repo. So this is my small code or a Python Hello World application that I'll be using to create the workspace from. So all you need to do is you just need to specify the Git repo over here. If it is a private, you also need to work upon credentials, but since this is public, you can just use it. Also, we have a couple of customizations over here. You can define the Git branch from where you want to deploy, even the path to dev file. So as when the developer dev spaces starts to be created, it by default looks for a dev file with the name of devfile.yaml in your repository. Now, let's say for some reasons you want to create with another dev file, that also you can do it. Over here, you can define the new dev file from which you want to create your workspace or like that. And then some of the advanced options, you can define your container image, which will be having your own libraries if you want to play around with it instead of your universal developer image. And then you can also have a memory or the CPU restrictions in place. This is similar to what we do with OpenShift, like putting some limits that your workspace should not take this more amount of memory or the CPU. You want to basically restrict the resources. So once you just give the URL, your Git repository URL, it will again start creating the workspace. It hardly will going to take 1 minute, but again, I'll also show you the dev file over here. So this workspace is created using this dev file, which is basically coming from my Git repo. So that's what this is showing. Dev file, it is already explained by Ashish, so it's just one component over here and one task over here. But you can create as per your customized needs. Over here, you can also do a couple of things, like if your work is done and if you want, you can like commit your code from the the workspace to the repository using the Git integration that we provide in the IDE. If you want, you can also use the persistent storage. Let's suppose you created a workspace, you did some coding, and then you forget to commit, and then you stopped or deleted the workspace, you might lose the data. So you can also use the features like persistent volume, which is basically going to store your data. So even if you stop the workspace today or come back tomorrow, start the workspace, your data will not lost. So yeah, this is it. I'll just show you how or from where you can stop the workspace or delete your workspace from here. So this is how you stop it, and then you can just delete the workspace. So yeah, we have less time, so we are open to questions if you have any. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we are not restricting in a dev file. You can define multiple components. Like if you want to run multiple services, you can define multiple components. But instead of doing so, you can also use multiple workspaces instead to communicate between the services. So if you have multiple repos serving multiple services, so instead of putting all together in a one workspace, you can even have multiple workspaces, and you can communicate between or connect between the workspaces. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, as soon as you will load more into the single workspace, the time it takes to bring up will be more. So it basically kills the purpose of providing the quick workspaces to the developer. So instead, you divide your services and create multiple workspaces, each serving one particular service, and connect between them. Yep. Yeah, that's okay. I can hear you.
What's usually the developer feedback on that? Because some of them can be a bit fiddly, right? They want their Vim, they have their special configurations, or they want it locally. I'm that kind of guy. So what's usually the feedback when you do the first intro of those spaces?
Yeah, so I mean, as I was speaking for in one of the slides, that some of the developers have their own way of doing things from a long time, right? It's difficult to say that okay, you come and do the things this way, right? So before that, it is important to showcase the benefit that comes out of this particular platform. So examples like, spinning it up quickly, examples of using containerized way of deploying workspaces, and then having those collaboration between multiple developers at the same time. So I would say showcasing them to the benefits or showing them in real time how this actually works might change their way that, okay, this is something that maybe we can try. So that's why we have provided this on Sandbox. It's free to use. You go ahead, try it out, and experience it, whether this is going to help you or how this actually going to help you.
Would you agree that the benefits are easier to convey for engineering management than to developers? Do you find that?
Yeah. I mean, they also do a lot of, I mean, with one of the partners, we were doing this last year, and, it took some time initially to convey this, and then we have implemented it. It took some time for the developers to come in and then try using it, but eventually they figure out the value, and then through multiple conversations on all the steps, including engineering engagements, this actually helped us. Yeah.
So I have one more such experiences. Excuse me. Yeah. So I was saying I also have one more kind of an experiences where there's a requirement where we want local NVMe repos to be configured. Users have strict requirements with not sharing their credentials. Like for a developer, usually is the settings.xml file or certain configurations which they are not which is more secure in your local laptop, because at an IDE level it's easier to store those content, but then going on to OpenShift Dev Spaces, that's something which they also feel how do we do it. So what do you think that can we do in such use cases?
Okay, so specifically to those use cases, first we need to make the user understand that it is not like I was opening a public repo right now, right? You can just create a workspace out of it, which is open. You can have your private repositories, right? Now within the private repositories, you can also configure either at the cluster level the credentials, or either you can do it at the namespace level. So at some level, what we can do is we can explain or ensure the developer team that whatever you are doing, that would be inside your namespace. It is not like you are configuring your credentials for a repo or some configuration file. It is going to be shared across developers. It's not like anyone will come in and will get the access to this. We are creating a namespace, which is again an isolation within the OpenShift boundary, and creating the credential inside the namespace. So it is just for those particular teams only, or for a particular user, right? Now, the question might come up but it is still available to platform team who is managing the OpenShift cluster, right? Your next question might be that it is still available to. So there we also have other things like you can encrypt the credentials using other technologies in the OpenShift level and things like that. So we can do a lot at the namespace or level, by encrypting things or by ensuring the developers that your repo would be securely available to you and it is not being shared across the developers.
But at the end of the day, this dev spaces is accessed via route. The dev space URL, the ID you access is via route. So
Correct.
if I give you the route, if I give someone else the route, they can open it, right?
No, they would only be able to access the dashboard URL only if the access is allowed. Second, when they log in, I can have a mechanism that they will have their own namespace created in the OpenShift. So you logs into the developer dashboard and I logs into the developer dashboard. You are a part of a different namespace. I am a part of a different namespace. When we create the workspace,
I was talking about ID. I mean, dashboards is fine. I created an ID in that. I created a workspace in it, and now I have a route out of it. At the end of the day, it's a route for the workspace also.
Correct.
If I share that to more than one, then
no, so if you want that collaboration, then only you will share the ID with the other developers. Otherwise, you will have a dashboard URL that only, even as I was telling, you don't need to even share the dashboard URL. You can give an API call and you can simply maybe have your own custom link on your own dashboard and create the workspace from that. That is also possible.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
thanks.
No worries. Yeah. I think we are done. Thank you so much.